Okay, in this video we're going to look at this device here. Now this is a high voltage spark generator, as we saw in the last clip. Now it could be used as a troubleshooting tool or an emergency automotive ignition substitute. Now with the circuit board located here, it could drive this coil to produce a spark with a frequency and duty cycle to fire up and run an 8-cylinder engine. So if you have a car that won't start and you suspect a no spark condition, you could hook up this high voltage terminal to the center post of the distributor and power up the circuit with these alligator clips to the battery and fire up your car. Or if you're left stranded on the road somewhere and your car won't start and you suspect a no spark condition, you could do the same thing and get your car running and drive it to the nearest parking lot where you could work on it. Okay, in this project I'm using this super coil, but you could use any automotive coil. I just happen to have this one laying around. Now this device will not work on the new cars that have the coil packs embedded in their ignition system. This will work on any V8 car with a rotary distributor with a center high voltage terminal. Okay, here's the scenario. It's a nice sunny day and you decide to take your 73 Camaro out for a drive. So you go out and you pick up your buddy and you're driving around and you come to an intersection and your car dies. You try starting it, it won't start. So you get out and you check under the hood and you find that there's no spark. So that could be a lot of things. It could be your ignition switch, it could be the power to the coil, it could be the coil itself, it could be the condenser or the points inside the distributor. So what you do, you pull off the existing wire off the center post of the distributor and you attach the wire from the output of the spark generator. Hook up the plus and minus to the battery and fire it up. And this device here, the engine ignition substitute, will put out a spark at a frequency that will fire up and run an 8-cylinder engine. Now this device will work on cars from the 60s, 70s, and 80s that have a distributor with the high voltage terminal in the middle of the distributor cap. Now the GM HEI, it will not work on that because the coil is in the cap and the high voltage output is actually inside the distributor itself. So you're only going to basically be able to work on the older cars that have a distributor similar to this. Okay, here's the schematic for the engine ignition simulator. Now the heart of the circuit is a 555 timer and it's running as an astable multivibrator. And with the resistor and capacitor values seen here, it will generate an output from pin 3 to a waveform similar to this, with a duty cycle and frequency calculated to fire and run an 8-cylinder engine. Now this waveform is fed into the transistor, and when the output of the 555 timer, pin 3, is high, between here and here, the transistor will be on and will energize the primary side of the coil. Through the positive of the battery terminal, through the 2.7 ohm resistor, through the coil, transistor, and ground. Now the dwell times between here and to here, which gives enough time for the magnetic field to maximize. Then it will shut off. The transistor will shut off. The magnetic field of the primary will collapse, causing a high voltage spike on the secondary, which will give you your spark. Now there will be a back EMF at this time from the primary side, and that's where the condenser comes in. It'll take the brunt of that. So basically that's the circuit. The transistor 2N6388 is a Darlington transistor, and you need a heat sink on there because it's going to get warm. And if you want to run this, if you want to run a 4-cylinder vehicle on this, you have to change the resistor and capacitor values, because on a 4-cylinder the frequency will be lower. So this circuit is designed to run on a V8 engine, and you'll need some modifications to run it on a 4-cylinder. The diode up there, the 1N4007, is just a reverse polarity protection in case you cross the wires on the battery. When you hook this thing up to the battery, it'll protect the circuit. So that's basically the circuit for the engine ignition simulator. Here you can see the circuit board that drives the coil. There's the transistor, and if you look closely you can see the 555 timer chip. And there is the condenser out of an Automotive distributor. And on the back side here, there's your 2.7 ohm 20 watt resistor.